Hey everybody, and welcome to the newest video on Microsoft Fabric Data Factory. This morning I woke up to a message from one of our field team members, a cloud solution architect, stating that their customer is using a lookup activity that is returning a list of email addresses, and they want to leverage the new Office 365 Outlook activity to send an email to that list of recipients. So today we're going to look into how to parse out that lookup activity's output and consume that within the Outlook activities to list. Today's scenario is going to be relatively simple in concept. Let's say we have some file or database that has a list of email addresses, and we're going to use a lookup activity to retrieve those email addresses. So in today's demo, I created a CSV. In that CSV, I have the header, user email, and underneath that, I have 3 records, each indicating a separate email address. We're going to use a lookup activity to read that CSV file. That's going to return those email addresses as an array of objects. Right? You can see that in the output of the lookup activity, we have the value field, which is an array of 3 objects with the key user email. So we need to parse out each of those email addresses and then into a comma delimited string and pass that into the Office 365 Outlook activity. From there, when we run the pipeline, you can see that it will send me an email or send all the recipients an email, and that's exactly what we're trying to do. So I'm going to jump into Microsoft Fabric. I'll show you the lakehouse of my CSV file, and then we'll create a brand new pipeline showing you how to parse out the lookup activity's output and convert that into a comma delimited string. So I've used Notepad to just go ahead and create a simple CSV file. Again, user email with 3 email addresses. I save this as a .csv. Then I use the OneLake File Explorer to upload this file to my lakehouse. You can see we're in my workspace, DI blog space, in the blog lakehouse. I just went ahead and clicked and dragged that CSV file into here, and we can see that that file landed in my file section of my blog lakehouse as a user_email.csv. So let's go ahead and create a new pipeline to read this CSV file, parse out those email addresses, and send an email. So we're going to create a new pipeline. Let's call this email test. Go ahead and create that pipeline. So the first thing we want to do is read those values from that file. Again, it could be a relational database, a response from our web activity, or reading a file from either the Fabric Lakehouse or ADLS Gen 2 or some other blob storage. In this use case, we're just leveraging the OneLake Explorer to drop that file in there to make it a little easier for the demo. So I'm going to go ahead and select lookup at the very top here. That's going to throw a lookup activity into our canvas. I'm going to name this get email CSV file. Call that get emails. And then we're going to point this to our workspace, the lakehouse, and to that blog lakehouse. Note that first row only is enabled by default. I have 3 records. So I want to actually disable that to return all 3 of my email addresses that are in that file. Please note that the lookup activity has a upper limit of 5,000 rows that can be returned. That's a hard limit, and it will not error out if you exceed that 5,000. It's just going to return the first 5,000 and report successful. So if you're dealing with things that have more than 5,000 records, maybe consider using like the stored procedure activity or some other activity that doesn't have that hard 5,000 limit. But for our use case, we just have 3 records. So let's go. So I'm going to select the file section. We're going to navigate to that directory. So email, and then let's browse. and get that user email.csv. Good practice that I like to do is just preview the data. We'll go ahead and close out this validation. And we see that we have the user email column name as well as those 3 email accounts that we want to send an email to. So let's close out this preview. Another best practice when working with pipelines is to validate early and often and to test. So we're going to validate. We see that the pipeline validation has passed. It has been validated. No errors were found. Let's go ahead and close that out. And then let's go ahead and run this to look at the output of this lookup activity. So from our canvas, so this is the pipeline authoring canvas right here. We can click anywhere in there to expose the parameters, variable settings, and output tab. From the output tab, after we run the pipeline, or during the run of the pipeline, we can see the output of each activity. We can see that our pipeline succeeded. Our get email CSV file, our lookup activity was successful. Let's go ahead and look at the output of that. So let's go ahead and expand the output so we can see the whole thing. We see that the output of the lookup activity returns the count, so 3 right there. So again, 5,000 is the upper limit here. We're well below that. But then the value. So the value is going to return an array right here. Let's see if we can zoom in. It's going to return an array of objects or JSON objects. And each object is going to have that key, which is our column header, user email, and the value. All right, so we need to parse this out because we want to send an email using the Office 365 Outlook activity, and the to field for that activity requires a comma delimited string, just like if I were to send an email using Outlook, right? So we need to convert this array of JSON objects into a comma delimited string. So let's go ahead and add in the Office 365 Outlook activity. We're going to, on the conditional path of the lookup, we're going to go on success to the Office 365 Outlook activity. Expand this tab at the bottom. We'll call this send email. And then from here, we're going to go ahead and sign into my account. This is going to require you to sign in to just validate that you are the one sending the email. So we're going to sign in, allow access. And we're signed in as my Microsoft account. And you see that the to field right here, specify email address, is separated by semicolons. I think commas work just fine, but we can do semicolons. And you can see that the example is John Doe at Consoto and user at Consoto. So we actually want to reference the lookup activity here. So to do that, we can click inside this field, and most fields within pipelines have this add dynamic content. Very powerful tool. Once we click that, it will open the pipeline expression builder up here at the top. This expression builder allows you to reference the activity outputs of any activity that's connected. It could be chained to the pipeline that you're working in. So here we see that we have a get email CSV file. That's the lookup activity. .output .count. That's that 3 we saw earlier, as well as value showing that the value is an array. So that when we click on the value array, it's going to show activity, the name of your activity, .output, .value. And if we hit OK, we hit back in the pipeline authoring canvas and go in output, you can see that we're looking at output .value, which is returning that array. So now we need to capture all of these email addresses into a list, right? So we can do this in a few different ways. We can pass that output, that array, into a for each activity, and then iterate on against that array, and then for each of those values, append that to an array variable, right? So I can create an array variable, and then I can append it using the append activity and append each of those email addresses to it. However, that's adding 2 more additional activities to your pipeline, and you might want to keep it simple. And even if we do it that method, we're going to have to play around with the expression builder and do some string manipulation. So let's just go ahead and do that all within the to list and see if we can get it working. So we're going to click back on this field. It's going to open it up. We know that it's an array of JSON objects with some key and some value with a comma, or not a comma, and multiple of these, right? So this is kind of what we want to parse out. And I'm just putting it in here just so that we kind of know what we're working with. And so that we know what we're working with. So we want to get these values, and it did specify semicolon, so we can do that. So to do that, first we got to cast the output, which is an array, as a string by using the string function. So now we're casting this whole thing as a string. We want to remove, we can actually remove these pieces right here to just get the value. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to do a bunch of string replaces to remove all the excess fat, essentially. So first off, we know we have a left square bracket and a right square bracket, so we can start with that. Replace is going to be the function we want to use. So let's use the replace function. I want to replace the left square bracket and replace that with an empty string. And then I want to do that again. So replace string value, that's fine. Let's go ahead and get rid of that. And then, so that's our left square bracket. Let's go ahead and add another replace. And then within here, we're going to say right square bracket, empty string. And then we can pop that into there. So we are replacing the left square bracket, and then let's go ahead and clean this up. Left square bracket and the right square bracket with an empty string. So it's going to remove those. Now we need to go ahead and remove the other field. So let's go ahead and select OK. We're not going to run this yet. I'm just going over here. A good practice that I use is to actually copy this. So we can do the same thing with the object, these little squiggly brackets, as well as the user email, the key and the colon and everything. So let's go ahead and we'll remove the brackets, and then we will remove the key value. So I went ahead and created the expression to replace all of those characters that we don't need. Let's go ahead and navigate to the expression builder, and I'll expand this expression out so that everyone can see. We're removing both the left and right square brackets, squiggly brackets, we're removing username, double quotes, the colon, and then finally we're going to replace the comma with the semicolon. So let's go ahead and select OK. My subject is going to be, I'm going to spam my coworkers here, so test, please ignore, and then some email body, right? And that looks good. We're going to leave everything else. Let's go ahead and validate and run, and I'll show you the output, and then I'll show you the email that was sent to me and my 2 colleagues. So let's go ahead and save and run, and I'll be right back. And we're back after just a few seconds. Probably took 11 seconds in total. We see that our send email Office 365 Outlook activity was successful. You can see that the output is empty, but the input was able to send to that expression, which is the semicolon delimited list of email accounts. And if we navigate to our Outlook, we can see that I received an email with the subject line "Test, please ignore," and it's sent to the three, myself and the two other coworkers, and that was it. So I hope you found this video useful. If you have to use a lookup activity to get a set of email addresses, and how you can use the expression builder to parse out that array of JSON objects into a semicolon delimited string. Thank you for your time. See you on the next video.